Welcome back to What's Up, Powering Smarter Homes, Stronger Businesses. I'm your host, Dustin Posey, and I'm here with my partner in efficiency, Mr. Darren Gomez. Today, we're doing a full breakdown of solar, essentially Solar 101 for y'all, what it costs, how the incentives work, and most importantly, whether solar is actually the right fit for your home or business.
Hey, this is Darren Gomez, your co-host. Right now, because the industry is louder than ever, with ads and claims and promises and all kinds of crazy things, people just don't really know what's true. So today, we're going to kind of talk about a clear, honest checklist to figure out, kind of what solar is and does it make sense.
Right. And today we're going to be talking costs, benefits, tax credits, state incentives, system design, everything you need to make the right decision without all the pressure. So let's jump right in. I thought today would be a good idea, Darren, for us to just sort of like bust some long-held solar myths, some misconceptions. Excuse me.
All right.
But before that, I think we have a plug, right?
We do. So once again, this is episode 2 of What's Up, and it's brought to you by Reviva Roof. Reviva Roof is the predominant shingle rejuvenation experts. They use a tall oil technology. If you'd like more information about Reviva Roof and who can get you that information, whether you want to be an installer or distributor or a certified contractor, you can actually go to revivaroof.com. It's in the bottom left-hand corner of your screen and get more information, or you can drop a note or comment on this podcast. So thank you, Reviva Roof.
Excellent. All right. Well, so I know you and I both have had a lot of experience, right, with folks from the call center or just a general lead source where we'd get on the phone or we'd show up to the house and the homeowner says, hey, here's what I've learned. And before the sale can even begin, the hardest part is trying to bust these myths, right? So I think we're going to spend a little bit of time today just talking through those. So I think myth number 1, the one that we hear most commonly, is that solar is going to make your power bill go away completely.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Now, so of course, with a grid-tied solar system, you're still going to have a utility bill, right? Whether that be fees, minimum charges, whatever the case may be. So unless you are fully off-grid, I would say definitely still expect to receive a utility bill. Savings, of course, are they're going to vary with usage, with your system size, with your local net metering policy. But what solar will do is solar will drastically reduce your bill, but I will say it rarely eliminates it entirely.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the biggest things. People really think that, getting solar will eliminate their bill. And even if you created a system that was large enough to produce the power that you're using, there are some fees and things there. So there still might be a small bill. But yeah, that's a really good myth.
Yeah. And what about this second one, Darren? We've heard this one too. How about my solar is going to work during a power outage?
Yeah, so my solar is going to, right? So your solar is not going to work necessarily during a power outage because most solar system in the United States is tied to the grid. So the only way that you can have power in a power outage, a grid power outage, is if you have a backup battery or some type of backup system in place.
Right. Solar plus battery, yes. Solar by itself, probably not.
Right.
Number 3, this myth is one that we commonly had to overcome. Luckily, we were vertically integrated with a roofing company, so it made this objection a little easier to overcome. Mm-hmm. But my roof has to face south for solar to work. Now, realistically, your south-facing roof is ideal. But, I mean, what we've learned is east and west performs almost just as well, right? Shading and consumption patterns, they usually matter more than direction anyway. So south is nice.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the southern sun is the predominant sun, especially here in the south, or I guess just generally throughout the United States, and that's going to give you the most production. But there's still a percentage of production on those east and west facing slopes. Your northern slope being the least amount of production. And what's really cool is technology has come so far that we can actually, or I should say, a reputable solar company can actually produce a reference to how much solar and how much production you're going to get.
Absolutely. So again, south is nice, but not necessary. This next one, this one's my favorite one. Solar is free. Right? We all see these ads on Facebook, free solar, schedule your free appointment today, all this kind of stuff. In reality, what we really see is that the free instance refers to zero down financing, right? So your solar by no means is going to be free. And homeowners are usually going to pay us through a loan, a lease, or even cash, right? But while it's zero down, it's never zero cost.
Yeah, big misconception and probably a play on words, right? And so that we do see that quite a bit in the industry. Solar is free. And where we do think there will be some offset to your bill and long term, your investment or what you'll gain far exceeds what you would lose if you just went with straight power from utility company. It still is not free.
Right, I agree. Heading back to the roof now. How about solar panels will damage my roof? So I know, especially with us, we saw that proper installation in the roof section beneath the array is critical, right? You got to have licensed contractors doing the work who know what they're doing. Leaks typically result from pre-existing stuff, not from new solar, from guys who know what they're doing.
Right. So solar panels won't damage your roof. I mean, if we really get technical, where the solar panels are covering your roof shingles, those roof shingles are not getting beaten down by the sun. They're not degrading as fast. So the shingles themselves have a longer life underneath the panels. But like you said, where we see this myth or this concern really pop up is when a company doesn't install the racking properly, doesn't seal the screws, all those different things that could happen in a solar installation. I guess just construction in general. But yeah, it doesn't damage the roof, but there are either pre-existing situations or construction situations that may come up.
Yeah. Most leaks are going to definitely come from your old leak, from your old roof, not a panel,
Yeah. Yep.
Let's see. The next one we talked about, I need the biggest system possible.
Right.
As a solar sales rep, this is always great to hear, right? But as a responsible sales rep, you got to realize that oversizing often just increases costs without increasing savings.
Right. So we talked about kind of those calculations of production. A really good company is going to know, first, they're going to take your existing utility bill for the year and determine how much power you're going to use. And then they're going to size a system that is going to offset your average use, whether it's 80%, 90%, 100%, whatever the case may be, where they build a system that will offset your usage. And even then, it's not guaranteed, right? We saw a lot of customers who gave us their utility bill, or maybe even gave us 2 or 3 years of the utility bill. We found the average. And then in the first 6 months, they're like, oh, I got solar. Let's leave the lights on longer, or whatever the case may be. And they're not really looking at the efficiency or the usage side of things. So yeah,
Right.
that's a good one.
We didn't want to cover your whole roof. It was just about covering what you needed.
Yeah. Yeah.
We hear this one a lot here in Louisiana, but solar only works in sunny states. Now, I mean, realistically, we've got states in the north, New Jersey, Massachusetts, right now going through some of the strongest adoption rates in the entire country, right?
You're right.
Solar
Yeah. I mean,
thrives in cooler climates.
Right. I mean, the sun is beating everywhere. I mean, it's not as if other than Alaska, or where the sun is not up in the darkest part of the year, it makes up for it in the longest part of the sun year. So the sun is always shining and will work regardless of where you are in the country.
Right. Panels need light, not heat.
Exactly.
This one's a good one. I should wait for better technology. How many iPhones have come out in the last 8 years, Derek?
Yeah, I mean, if you're waiting for better technology, you'll be waiting forever. And yes, we do recognize that the cycles of new technology has shortened over the last decade or two. What used to take a year takes 3 months, and that is probably true for solar technology as well. But the base technology is pretty much the same, and we're only really looking at efficiency of the panels, how much power a panel can produce.
Right. And at this point, because solar is so mature and stable, the efficiency outputs we're looking at are fractional at this point. right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So waiting years can actually cost you more money and risk your incentives, because realistically, the tech is not doubling next year, but your light bill probably will.
But that's exactly right, Dusty. Like, you know, the longer you wait to invest in the solar panel, if you're a good candidate, the longer it takes for you to, one, regain your return on your investment, and then two, start actually positively cash flowing, your investment in the solar production. So yeah, the longer you wait, the longer it takes.
Yep. This last one's a good one. We really started pushing batteries as part of our solar system, is here, especially here in Louisiana, right? For mostly just backup power during a storm. We have brownouts now with the heat. But this last one we heard a lot was solar batteries last forever.
Right. So solar battery technology, or really let's take the word solar out of it. Let's go battery technology. Just in the last year has exploded, right? We've seen probably in the last 5 years this battery backup explosion by manufacturers. Or we've heard maybe Elon Musk, talk about the how many miles a Tesla battery powered car can go and so forth. So there's a lot of technology out there that's going to increase battery efficiency. And so I would say generally most battery manufacturers have around a 10-year warranty. They're going to work well beyond that 10 years, but that's kind of the warranty that we're seeing generally.
No, I agree. We're looking right now, typically 10, 15 years, depending on the chemistry and the usage of that battery. And they're really great for backup, or even like California time of use rates. But they're certainly not invincible. They're powerful, but not immortal.
Yeah, and I would say the adoption of batteries with solar is right in that time of use kind of conversation in California. California has this time of use where it's a costs more to run your electricity over a certain amount of time. But what we're seeing in a lot of states is that they're no longer offering a one-to-one buyback of the power you're producing. Right. And so a battery is really good investment so that you can fill your battery up during the day and at night use your battery power. And that's where you can get a really fast or a faster ROI on your investment. So we'll talk a little bit about that too, I'm sure.
Yeah, helps pull less from the grid.
Exactly.
All right, so last one, then we'll kind of jump into what solar really is, but this one's a good one. So solar is always a good investment. Now, realistically, solar is excellent when conditions align, but here in Louisiana, we see tons of huge oak trees with heavy shade. You've got homes that don't use a whole lot of power. Whether you got folks that are retired or living by themselves, just generally energy efficient folks, people who are not eligible for tax credits, and then even people who rent, right? Or maybe not even rent, but you plan on, you're not going to be in your home for very long.
That's always that's always the big concern. I would say that one of the things that the industry is or maybe known for that is not so positive is getting people who are elderly to get solar, and where that could still be a good investment for that elderly person, especially if they plan on passing the house on to their kids or whatever the case may be. And then that may make sense, but there's a lot of, I guess, what people say are predatory things, and that may be one of them. So it's not always a good investment for that particular homeowner, and frankly, it's not always a good install for that particular home.
Oh, I agree. And a good thing to remember, folks, is a good solar pro is going to tell you when not to buy panels as well, right? They're not just going to see you all the time.
And to tie back to our first episode, sometimes the solar production or the solar cost or the offset, whatever you get, won't trump the efficiency upgrade that you can get for a lot lower investment, upfront investment anyway. So a good solar pro, especially a company that's doing both efficiency and solar, will always go efficiency first, solar second, if it's one of the things that they're offering or they're selling to the customer, especially in those situations that you just outlined.
Yeah. Cool. All right. So now that we got those out of the way, we kind of have a better understanding of what we're really dealing with. Let's just kind of dive in, right? I mean, one of the things I really want to talk about today is the real cost of solar. The things that people are generally wanting to know. They hit those Facebook marketing tags. They want to just get a quote. I want a general idea of what solar costs. So nowadays, you've got typical residential systems can range anywhere from $25,000 to $50,000 before incentives, and of course, our commercial systems are going to range widely based on scale, and then of course desired ROI. But lots of things come into play when we talk solar, right? When we talk cost, we talk essentially power utilization. How much power does your house use? What kind of roof do you have? What kind of shading is done on your property? What kind of tree work do we need to get? What about like equipment tiers? What kind of panels is your company going to be able to acquire? And then of course, labor and permitting. Most everybody, we're in residential construction, so you've got to have contractor licenses and permits and the works.
Yeah, I mean, small business in general, especially home services, they're going to have some costs, at least the ones that you want to do business with. They're going to have workers' comp and general liability, and they're going to have, all these different costs that may not be the same across every contractor, for sure isn't the same across every state. And so, you have to look at all that. So price is not always the deciding factor to choose a contractor. You have to look at a lot more factors. Price may be one of them, but you have to look at the reputation of the company. There's a lot of things that you need to do due diligence on when you're choosing a good solar contractor.
Yeah. And, like we said, typical solar systems range anywhere from 25 to 50,000. And in terms of paying for the system, the majority of our homeowners are utilizing financing, right? So a loan, typically 10 to 25 years, somewhere in there. Of course, interest rates, we all know as just living daily life right now, interest rates rely on the Fed and don't come from within the industry. So, of course, they play a heavy role in impacting value. For those of us who can afford to pay cash for a solar system, without a doubt, that's your best long-term ROI, right? You're getting immediate benefit right up front.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we're seeing in the industry now, I guess in the last couple of years, is the lack of visibility of a long-term loan and what your interest payments are, or what your total interest is over the life of that loan, especially with the interest rates going up. And so I think in general, there was a dirty little secret in the solar industry, in that the customer is paying for, obviously they're paying for their interest, but they're also paying for any fees that the finance company was charging the contractor.
Right.
And so a lot of times this 25, 30-year loan looks really good in terms of a payment, but when you look at the total fees, you might do just as well getting a shorter loan term with a better interest rate. Right. We could probably talk for hours on just that piece alone.
Well, and I was going to say, so when we were actively selling, we were looking at 20-25% dealer fees, right? So your system cost $100,000. The dealer had to add 25,000 just to cover the cost of the loan. Nowadays, Darren, I've heard that number as high as 45-50% on a strong 25-year low interest rate.
Yeah, it can definitely look that way, and that was part of I think that was part of that hidden cost. It's not a hidden in that people knew what they were paying, right? Like, it's not as if the people didn't see the loan information. They saw that it's going to cost this much a month. Here's the base cost, and here's the interest you're going to pay. Like, they see all that. So it's not as if that was hidden. But what I guess wasn't as clear was that these additional fees, these 35, 45, 50%, was being rolled into the loan so that the company wasn't incurring that cost. Now, there were some companies who were eating or, taking out of their profits part of that. And so it's not as if, every company was being unscrupulous in what they were doing, right. But it definitely was playing a part in that monthly cost.
Yeah. And I think all of these factors that we've been talking about, they really kind of lead us to where the industry's heading right now, where it's folks are really focused on leasing, right? A PPA or a lease, because what we really see then, you see a much lower upfront cost, maybe a little bit long-term obligations, but realistically, the system is not yours to maintain. You derive all the benefit from it, and then the company that you lease from is the one who takes on the responsibility of maintenance and upkeep and that sort of thing. So I think the industry is moving in a much different direction today than it was 5-10 years ago.
Oh, definitely. I think in terms of how you can finance, how you can purchase or lease solar, and then also in the visibility of costs, that has become a hot topic and is a lot clearer than it used to be. So people can really make a good decision as to how they want to get solar on their roof.
And I'm hoping that maybe later on in one of our episodes, we can invite one of our good buddies on to really talk about the benefits of leasing and maybe even leasing from him.
Yeah, that would be great. I mean, we have several good contractors that we're familiar with and know on a personal level and on a business level that hopefully we'll be able to bring on. May even be able to bring on in some multiple states. Like we have one that does Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi. We have one that does, Texas, California, and blah, blah, blah. So we'll see what we can do.
Yeah. And, I know there's a lot to cover in terms of what solar costs, right? So, again, if y'all have any questions, please feel free to comment, email, whatever. And Darren and I will hit those questions as often as we can.
Yep.
Now let's talk about the true benefits of going solar, Mr. Darren Gomez.
Right. So we know that what solar is going to do, and in the industry we say solar PV, photovoltaic, production of power, if you will, is going to produce power. We know 100% that a solar panel will produce power, right? And so we're going to see a reduction in our total overall usage or kilowatt hours of power that we would get from the grid, meaning that we would get from our local utility company.
Absolutely. And realistically, we're seeing nowadays utility bill reductions in the 40 to 90% range. But I know Darren's hit on this before. It really depends on how much you're using your power, right? Because if we put on a full system, we estimate that to drop your electric bill 75, 80%. Then you start utilizing more power than you did prior to the consultation. It's essentially a wash, right?
Yeah.
But one of the main benefits, this is the premise that I always sold on, right, is you are essentially, all of us are renting power from a utility company. We don't own it. We don't control the cost. We don't know what it's going to cost next month, next year, 10 years from now, right? And one of my favorite analogies is, let's say that Darren and Dustin bought a 10,000 gallon tanker of fuel in 1980, right? And now I'm a late bloomer in the 80s, so I don't know what gas cost back then, but let's say it was $1, right? You'd have 10,000 gallons of gas at $1, whereas today you've got prices at $3, $4, $5 a gallon. Solar is the same way, right? We're locking in your cost now. You've got predictable bills for 20, 30 years. It's just a much more efficient way to run your home.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you can lock in the cost of anything early on, then you're usually doing really well on your return on your investment, right? And that's exactly what solar does. Is when you build a system that produces, X amount of kilowatt hours, it's going to produce X amount of kilowatt hours at the cost that you bought it for the entire life of the system. Mm-hmm. And we know that most systems are going to produce 90% up to 25 years, I think is what it is. But realistically, there are systems that are 30 and 40 or 50 years old that are producing well within the limits of what the panels are rated at.
Yeah. Realistically, what did a gallon of gas cost back then, Darren?
I don't know. I was 5 years old in 1981. I have no idea.
Now this next one, this next topic is a little sticky for some folks, but solar also is said to really bring up your home value, right? I mean, you've got no electric bill, you've got your own power plant on your roof, and while you certainly can't offset the entire cost of the project, nowadays you're looking anywhere from $5,000 to $20,000 in increased home value just based on your system.
Yeah. So this particular topic can be very complicated. We can probably spend a whole episode just talking about this, but realistically, there is some additional value to your home. Now, whether or not we can get these assessors, the home assessors, to recognize that that is one of the challenges. And there's some really good companies out there that help actually document the added value. The Pearl Network, or the Pearl certification, is one of those entities that will actually take the value of your system and show the value now and the depreciation value over time, so that a home assessor can actually take that and add that to the value of the home. So there's a lot of things. I expect that to really grow in the next 5 or 10 years, where we actually see that hopefully a little more clearer in the value of the home, as opposed to this kind of ethereal, your house was worth more, where it's actually getting some real value. So the Pro Network is one of those. I'll try and put a link in the chat to the Pro Network if you want more information.
Yeah, it's an awesome program. And now, of course, along with the other benefits we talked about, y'all, one of the main reasons people go solar is energy independence, right? I want to own my own power. And of course, when you pair that with a battery or a storage, you really do become your own entity. You've got power production, power storage, power utilization, all of this happening before you ever pull from the grid or export back to the grid. So energy independence, increased home values, predictable bills, and current utility bill reductions, just four of the main reasons why folks go solar.
Yeah.
Now,
no doubt.
What about like big businesses, Darren? So I know we didn't do a whole lot of commercial, but I wanted to hit on those just briefly, because I know that businesses specifically see large tax deductions. You've got that MACRS depreciation factor. It's a long-term cost control for major businesses. And then, of course, you've got environmental and sustainability improvements that corporations can rely on even more when they start to deduct taxes. So tons of good benefits.
Lots of benefits there from a business standpoint. I actually had a personal friend bought a commercial building, bought his existing commercial building that he was renting from, went ahead and bought the rest of the building. And so he had a big tax burden. And so he's like, hey, how do I offset that? Hey, let me use solar. And so then he calculated the cost of the solar, the cost of the taxes, and did all the calculations and said, hey, I'm going to invest in solar, not for now, for tax benefits, and for the future for my utility costs. So so that Pro certification website is on the bottom of your screen if you want to get more information about the Pro score and how that relates to solar, and relates actually to other efficiency upgrades that you can make in your home, from water heater replacement, air conditioner replacement, insulation. A lot of good information about efficiency and how that can relate to increased home prices.
Love it. Thank you, Sarah. Now, y'all, this next section, this was a little tricky, right? Especially given our timing. When Darren and I were really selling, one of the main factors of going solar was your federal ITC, your income tax credit. With the ITC currently at 30% through the end of 2025, it's a massive break on your solar system, right? Again, you buy a $100,000 solar system, you're able to claim a $30,000 deduction on your taxes. Now, whether you can take that in 1 year or multiple years, doesn't matter. You can roll it forward. But as long as you have that liability to claim the deduction, you're free to use it. And of course, I said it's tricky, right? Because the 30% is only going to really last till the end of this year, and you do have to be fully installed and operational to claim that tax credit. But it's really a great incentive program for solar.
Yeah, so most of our incentive programs are tax credits, because it is a credit that we see for solar and efficiency in general. Most of them are going to expire by the end of the year. There are a couple instances where they remain. I want to say in the PPA agreements and some of the lease agreements that it's extended beyond that, but for the purchasing of it, it's going away. But what does that mean exactly? Like Dusty said, if you had a $100,000 system that you financed or paid up front for, you have a 30% tax credit on any taxes that you would owe, meaning your tax liability. And I think one of the biggest things that scares people, or where you see people complain, is where a solar company sells a system with a 30% tax credit showing, knowing that a customer may not ever have that tax liability for whatever reason, age, whatever the case may be, and then the homeowner will never be able to see that. The second part to that is on the financing side, typically you'll see that 30% tax credit affect their payment or show as a lower payment until maybe 12 or 18 months, depending on the financing, where that 30% is actually due on the loan that you would get, that you're expecting to get back from the federal government. So we can talk about that a little more if you'd like, but generally that's something that is a pitfall for some customers, and where they feel like they were lied to, and maybe they were, or maybe they just didn't understand it really well.
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree. Lots of folks feel like they are not explaining that reamortization very well. It is difficult to explain to folks who have never heard of it, but realistically, like Darren said, the loan that you're going to take out on your solar system is assuming that full 30% is going to come back in that first 18 months, right?
And that you're going to actually pay that 30% to the loan company.
Not buy a pool and then keep a high loan.
Right. But, some people, like we had some customers who were really knowledgeable and understood it. And they were like, okay, my monthly payment now, let's say, is $250. In 18 months, when this 30% is due and the loan gets amortized, is that right? Yeah. Amortized, whatever that word is, it's still at a lower interest rate than what I could get that money for
from
somewhere else. So yeah. I'm just gonna keep my payment at whatever it is, and it reamortizes to maybe $500 a month.
Right.
Or it usually doesn't double, but let's just say $500 and keep the math simple. And like, well, I can get that 30% way cheaper in this loan, and then I don't worry about the increase in price. But for those customers who are paying $250 and then it amortizes to $500, they're like, holy crap, my bill just went up $250.
Right.
But really it's because you didn't pay back the 30% that you expected to realize.
Right. Now, I mean, so the ITC may expire this year, but luckily we have also state and local rebates or incentives that come through for most of our customers, right? I know when we opened up South Carolina, we had state tax credits, and most states now will have an SREC or even local utility incentives, but essentially a state renewable energy credit. Those SRECs will come from, I know I see a lot of them right now in Illinois. I think there's one in Maryland. I don't want to say, but SRECs are a great tool. It's essentially that ITC at a state level. So you've got state income taxes. Same thing applies, right? You get a tax credit to apply towards your state taxes. Some states are even offering $1,000 to $2,000 rebates on performance, and so you've got that initial $1,000 to $2,000 rebate plus an SREC, and then some local utilities will even give you performance credits on your bill, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I expect over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to see just a change in everything. I expect there'll probably be some tax credits that come back. If I had to guess, with the new administration, I expect that some states may incentivize people to go solar as they need more power generated at the local level. What people don't realize is that there are solar panels that are pushing power back to the grid to help offset those brownouts that you talked about earlier, or just meet supply. Yeah. And so I expect there'll be some changes and shifts, as we move forward through the years, to incentivize people to get solar. Where I love solar and I love technology and I love green technology. Frankly, it's typically not going to be the sole answer to our needs as a people in the United States, but it's definitely, I think, viable.
No, I agree. And then moving on from sort of a residential credits and incentives, you got to think business incentives as well. So they've got for large corporations, or it doesn't have to be a large corporation, but a business entity. You've got that bonus depreciation. I think you can typically utilize 80 to 100% in year one if you're able to. And then, of course, whenever those business incentives are stacked with ITCs, it usually leads to a really fast return on ROI.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're dealing with a business, accounting can get really complicated. But typically, what we see is exactly what you said: is a faster ROI, utilizing all of the tips and tricks and what's available in the accounting code.
Yeah. Lots of good rebates back there. And again, y'all make sure to ask your solar sales rep, what incentives am I going to qualify for? And make sure they understand, right? Make sure they walk them through fairly well for you.
Yep.
So now that we know sort of what the benefits might be, what general cost is, and what incentives are available to us, I wonder, most people are thinking, is solar right for me? So it's a great topic, right? Are you a good, are you a good, I don't want to say consumer, but is it right for you? I think a checklist certainly would help, but realistically, our prime customer, you've got a fairly new roof, you've got less than 15 to 20% annual shading, you've got an electric bill that's at least higher than $120 a month, you have tax liability, and you have a fairly efficient home, right? With Darren's energy efficiency models, where you want a house to reduce before you produce, right? So I think all of those.
Let's go over those again, Dusty, because I think that was important. So a typical or an ideal solar customer would have a decent roof, which is, I would say, if we had to define what is a decent roof, somewhere between that 5 and 10 year mark.
Yeah.
Is probably a good roof. If you if you have a roof that's 5 to 10 years old and you want to get some life out of it, I'm going to make a plug. The Revival Roof Shingle Rejuvenator is probably a good option for you. If you're a solar company and you're looking to get over that roof objection, Revival Roof would be a product that you can offer along with efficiency to really provide the customer with this complete package. Keeping going, shade, less than 15 to 20% of shade. That means probably not going to have a lot of trees around your house. Right? Electric bill that is at least $120 or more. With the interest rates now, your loan payment is not going to be 1-to-1 to your utility payment. But in long-term investment, you're going to get a lot of value and return on your dollars. So $120 is probably, it might even be a little low, but at least that.
Well, and we've also started to see, to your point, a real rise in electric bills, right? People who were paying $150, $200 last year are now suddenly paying $300, $400, $500 a month just for power. But I hate to say it, the higher your electric bill, the better your ROI. That's for sure.
Well, there's no doubt, right? I mean, there's no doubt that the higher your bill is, the more a solar can really help. That's typically when we see the most. It's when those bills are under $100 or $120 where it's a little bit harder to show on the upfront return on your investment. It's really going to be more of a long-term investment.
Yeah.
So we talked about the roof, the shade, electric bill, tax liability. You actually are having to pay taxes, right?
Yeah. What you don't want is that ITC to go to waste, right? I mean, like we talked about just a second ago, everyone technically qualifies for the ITC when their solar is bought and installed. Whether or not you can utilize that credit, that's a whole different story. Right? You really got to have the liability to eat that 30% up. And again, it doesn't have to be all in 1 year. It can roll over for multiple years. So if you do have a lower tax liability, but again, you're still paying taxes, that ITC is still effective for you. I think we just talked a little bit more about that increased solar note, though, without the full 30%.
Yeah.
And then last but not least, the home efficiency. I'll let you take this one. This was your area of expertise.
Yeah. I mean, so if the solar company is not offering efficiency, then, to be a really ideal customer, or at least to maximize your return, have an efficient home. That's typically what we see. And typically, I would say a home that is 5 years old or newer would be considered efficient. Anything over 5 years, and you're probably starting to get into that inefficiency because even code 5 years ago was not near as stringent as code is now. So anything 5 years or newer, you're probably okay. Anything over 5 years, you may want to look at some efficiency upgrades first and then solar. Doesn't mean that you're not a good candidate, but you may get more bang for your buck, or lower, solar payment if you have some efficiency tagged along with it.
Right. And one other one that we haven't really talked about, but folks that have just moved into their new home, right? Folks who are going to plan on being at their home for longer than 10 years. Somebody who really wants to utilize their new property to its fullest. So,
yeah, for sure. I mean, that's actually a really good point. We talked about kind of how solar affects the overall value of your home. And that ties right into how long are you planning on staying in your home? Is this your forever home? If it is, then you're really going to see that 25, 30-year return, high, or I should say really high return, because you're going to be in the house for that long, right? So you really want to see that. I mean, what? Let me ask you a question, Dusty, because you know this better than me. What was the typical return on your investment for a typical solar system in that kind of ideal scenario that we used to sell in? Was it 5 years? Was it 10 years?
Prime setup, we were looking 7 to 10 years, which realistically it's not that long, right? I mean, we're paying a utility bill every month until we die, so it doesn't matter. But when those folks, after year 7, you really start to see a trend where your money's coming back to you. Yeah. It's amazing. And then after that 10 years, once you fully got the return from the initial purchase of your system, you're just pocketing free money.
Right. You're that's exactly right. Because now the cost of electricity has doubled, tripled, whatever it has, and you're producing the power at the same rate for the same cost, or your note's already paid off, and now you're just producing power for free at that point, right? Which goes towards your return. So, yeah, that's a really good point.
All right, so we talked about what makes you a good solar customer. What makes us a bad solar customer? When might I not be a good fit? I think you can kind of infer from our previous list, but realistically, folks who live in a forest, I love you. I love my trees. You're not going to be the best customer. Oftentimes, Darren, we'd go to somebody's house, and you know this better than I, but you'd get there, you'd have 10, 12 giant pine trees. And we'd say, look, we can help you a little bit with the cost for removing these trees, but I don't think I can come up with 20 grand to help you remove all 12. But significant shade, any kind of obstruction against your panels is really damaging to the efficiency, and it truly is almost not worth it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, that's exactly right. I mean, but we have seen some, really bad contractors selling solar with shade. And they're lying to the customer about how much power it's going to produce, and that's really a bad deal.
I can't tell you how many times I went to a house in rural Mississippi, and a nice old lady and her husband would answer the door, and they say, "Well, hey, can you help us? Our panels aren't really working." And I'll open the door, and you can barely see the sun from their front porch because literally looking through the trees.
Yeah.
Another one. So this one's kind of it's a double-edged sword, right? If you need a roof replacement soon, you're probably not the best customer for solar, unless we're also talking about getting a new roof, right? Or if you have a contractor who has Revive a Roof connections, it's really important to have a solid structure to adhere your solar to, period.
Yeah, so bad roof, you see it listed of the kind of things that make you think where it may not be a good fit. Bad roof can mean, old shingles, shingles that are showing the fiberglass, or shingles that are blown off, missing shingles. It also means bad roof structure. So you could have really soft decking. Maybe water has started to penetrate the decking. You could have spacing issues on your roof trusses beyond, usually 16-inch on center. Sometimes when we get to that 24-inch on center, there may need to be some additional structural rigidity that needs to be added. So that's when we say bad roof, we're really talking about the structure of the home.
Yeah. I know we hit on this one a good bit earlier too, but low energy bills. So I don't know how they do it, I'm averaging probably $200-300 a month with my little family of 4 up here on the hill with no shade. Folks who have $80, $90, $100 a month utility bills, you're really not the best customer for solar, right? I mean, I don't think we're fooling anybody by saying solar is it's more expensive than most people think generally, right? So it's not something to be taken lightly, but you really got to have a higher electric bill to fully recognize your ROI. Again, that return is so important.
I mean, that's part of showing, that's part of the sale, right?
Right.
Is showing that return on your investment. So I've updated our little banner: bad roof, lots of trees, low electricity bill, no tax liability.
Right.
So if you don't have any tax liability, solar may not be what's right for you in the moment, unless you're looking long term beyond your existing liability. An inefficient house, efficiency, insulation specifically has your fastest ROI. So if you have a house that's inefficient, no insulation, you may want to look at that first. Bad credit.
Yeah.
Right? Because we're talking about loans.
I was going to say you're financing the system, right? It's almost the same as going to finance a car. Realistically, you don't need as high a score to get solar. There's lots of programs for folks in the 550, 600 range. But realistically, to really qualify for a strong solar loan, we want to start looking about that 650 mark.
Yeah, that's a good point. The better you score, the better your interest rate, obviously. But lots of finance companies have primary and secondary looks to get those people with lower credit scores, at least to have the ability to be financed.
Yeah. And look, I mean, I'll say this for the industry: there's not going to be a salesperson that comes to your home that doesn't want to sell you something, right? So you may have poor credit. We're going to do whatever we can to help you go solar.
Yeah. I mean, I would make this statement, and maybe it's bad, or maybe it's not. I would say that if you're dealing with a solar company that only has the ability to install solar and solar only, you may want to look for another company that offers other things to give you more value for your dollar. Yeah. That value proposition that we talked about in the first episode, where they're either upgrading efficiency, whether it's insulation, water heater, HVAC, whatever that looks like, where they have the ability to offer you a roof within the solar loan or within your solar purchase. So now you have maybe a $15,000 roof that you get to spread over the life of a 25-year loan, where the cost of the roof is really low compared. That's a great value. Or they have some other type technology that's going to help you long term. So really look for somebody who's looking at the whole picture and not just solar. Is that a good statement to make? Don't just choose a solar contractor. Choose a solar contractor that has the ability to value add.
Yeah, I mean, and I know I don't want to beat a dead horse, but to add on to that, when you look at contractors who are just offering you solar, you also need to look at like how long that contractor has been offering this solution, right? Because solar mom and pops, they pop up all the time. I'm certainly not hating on anybody, but the longer a company's been in business, the more reputable they are. The shorter somebody's been in business, the more questions I ask, right? That's
and the shortness or the short term openness of the company. That's not the word I want to use. I know this kind of sounds funny, but however long a company has been in business doesn't mean they're bad. Like if they're less than 5 years, doesn't mean they're a bad contractor. As a matter of fact, there's a lot of great contractors that have broken off from an existing company and started their own company because they want to be better than the previous company. There's a lot of them. You just have to ask those questions. Tell me about your owners. Tell me about your experience, and they should be able to answer those questions really easy.
Right. Last but not least, we hit on this one, but folks who are just moved into your home, but maybe don't have a plan to stay there very long. Let's say you're in the middle of a move. You got maybe 5 years. That's the most you think you're going to spend in this next house. You really want to look for your forever home after the fact, or even if you're renting, right? You're just not a great customer for solar. You really want to have that full 7 to 10 years with your system to really start to see the return. And so if you are in like a short-term residency situation, it's best to just wait on solar until you're in a much more permanent situation.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, I would say everybody's going to have their own unique situation and reasons to get solar. You know, we have customers who want solar because it is a green technology and that's what I want to do. And I don't really care about a loan, or I don't really care about the payment. I'm getting solar no matter what, whether it's producing 50% or it's producing 80%. Like, we have those customers, and frankly, as long as they understand what they're getting into, I'm okay with making that sale.
Yeah.
So yeah, all those are great reasons maybe why you're not a great fit for solar, but every situation needs to be assessed.
Yeah. Nice. Good stuff. All right. So I think before we close it out, let's see what we've learned today. So Darren, does solar work during an outage?
Yeah. So our lightning round, right? Does solar work during an outage? The answer is no, because you're tied to your grid system and the system has to actually detect power. So no, unless you have battery backup or maybe even a generator in those situations. But even with a generator, there's some limitations.
Yeah. And then what's the lifespan of our current system?
So most companies, most manufacturers, and most installers are going to provide you with a warranty of somewhere between 25 and 30 years.
Awesome. And then as a homeowner, how much maintenance do I have to do on my solar system?
Yeah, I mean, this question comes up a little bit, but typically it's very little, right? There's not a lot of maintenance that you have to do to the system. You can actually, depending on whether you have microinverters or string, but even with the strings now, you can actually monitor how much power the panels are producing and troubleshoot by panel. So, you know, generally not a lot of maintenance. I would say, like, if you live in the desert, Arizona, maybe there's a lot of dust. You might have to go and sweep or blow off your panels occasionally. In the wintertime, if it's heavy snow, you might have to clear the snow on the panels so that they produce. But typically, you don't have to do a whole heck of a lot.
Or if you live in Louisiana, you have pollen season, so you get to blow off yellow dust for 3 months.
That's true. There's a lot of yellow pollen that gets caught in Dusty's beard, and then he looks like a swamp man.
And then last but not least, we talked about this one. What's our break-even timeline typically? What's our ROI for these new systems?
Yeah, I mean, we're typically looking anywhere from 6 to 12 years when you're purchasing a system to really start to realize the financial benefits of your investment, or at least get to a break-even point. But long-term, the longer you're in a home, the more return you're going to see.
Yeah. And of course, for commercial systems, we're going to see a much faster ROI, but again, far too many variables in that solution to really figure out it right now. All right. So I think we've come to the end of episode 2 here, Mr. Gomez.
Yeah, we're right. Yeah, I think it's a lot of information. Hopefully it was good information for you guys. And if you have any ideas or questions that you want us to address specifically in a future episode, please feel free to email or drop a comment in the chat box. We are on YouTube. So if you haven't already, like and subscribe to YouTube. You'll see this also posted to our Facebook page. Like and subscribe to that as well. But we're really trying to drive our YouTube up as much as possible. We'll make sure we put that in any social media post for you to click on and view.
Awesome. So, y'all, look, in closing, what we've learned today, it really is solar is a tool, right? And like any tool, the value depends on proper use. It depends on whether you're a good customer. Cost varies, but we're looking anywhere from 25 to 50 grand. You've got a fast ROI, and even with batteries, you've got a backup system. So lots of great benefits from solar as long as you utilize them well.
And as usual, our mantra is reduce before you produce. So efficiency should be in the conversation of solar. And people don't want to talk about efficiency, or solar companies don't want to talk about efficiency with solar. Then you may want to also get a second opinion.
I agree. So, folks, thanks for hanging out with us. We are What's Up with Smarter Homes, Stronger Businesses, and we will see you next week.
And the way I say it is different. It's What's Up. Thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for any comments or feedback. Thanks for sharing and liking our page on Facebook and other social medias, and go to YouTube and like us there. So once again, thanks so much. We appreciate you, and we'll see you on the next one.